Welcome, everyone. Whenever I fly, I usually like an aisle seat because you can get up and stretch and not interfere with your other passengers. But every once in a while, it's nice to get a window seat. For me, especially when I'm flying into a new city, so I can look down and get the big picture, you know, what the people call the 35,000-foot view. Well, that's what I would like to do now. I would like to offer you the 35,000-foot view when it comes to Catholic evangelization and Catholic faith formation. The way I'd like to do that is to talk a little bit about one of my favorite passages. It's the end of Matthew's Gospel, and probably many of you are familiar with this. So Jesus has been raised from the dead. He's appeared to the women in Jerusalem, but not to the male disciples. And he says to the women, "Tell the male disciples to go to Galilee, and I'll meet them on the mountain." Now, mountains are often places of divine encounters, and that's exactly what's going to happen. So the disciples come, and they do two things which are very interesting. They fall down in worship, and they give him homage, but we're also told that they doubt. Like, you can imagine them clearing their eyes, saying, "Is that really Jesus risen from the dead?" So I guess believing and doubting are not mutually exclusive. Well, Jesus speaks to them, and these are the first words Jesus speaks to the male disciples since he's been raised from the dead. And this is what he says. He says, "All authority on earth and heaven has been given to me." Then he says, "Go." He says, "Don't stay on this mountain. Go into the world." Then Jesus says, "And make disciples of people." Find people who are curious, who are open to me and my message, and make disciples of them. And then disciple them the way I discipled you. And when they're ready, publicly baptize them and get them to say that God the Father is God, that I, Jesus Christ, am God, and the Holy Spirit is God. Baptize them in the divine name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. So that's the first half of what's called the Great Commission. But then Jesus says to the disciples, but don't let them be little baby disciples. Once they become disciples, grow them up, make them mature. Don't let them just drink milk for the rest of their lives. Like Paul says, give them solid food to eat, and help them to be mature disciples so that they follow everything I taught you. So this is the second half of the Great Commission. Notice it's to make disciples and then to mature disciples. Really, it's a little bit more than that. It's to make disciples who make disciples who make disciples. And then it's to mature disciples who mature disciples who mature disciples. This is what missionary discipleship is all about, the famous phrase of Pope Francis. So God sends, through Jesus Christ, sends the disciples, the apostles, into the world to, and this is what the Catholic Church calls this, evangelize. Making disciples who make disciples, maturing disciples who mature disciples, is the mission of evangelization. So, take a little break, and we're going to figure out a little bit more about what the Catholic take on the Great Commission is.